After saving his sister's life, the brother is scorned by her and decides to leave home. In a small coastal town, where mornings are marked by the sound of the ocean waves and winding streets tell stories of generations, lived the family of Caitlin and Alex. Caitlin, at 9 years old, was a girl with brown hair that fell in rebellious curls down her back, bright eyes, and a smile that seldom left her face. Alex, 3 years her senior, shared his sister's expressive eyes, but his hair was straight and black. Their parents, Brandon and Isabella, were well-known figures in the town. Brandon, a mechanic with calloused hands, was the type of person who never turned down a chance to help, known for fixing not just cars, but occasionally the small troubles in other people's lives. Isabella, on the other hand, worked as a teacher at the local school, where she taught with the patience and dedication only those truly passionate about education possess. The home of the four was modest, but filled with love and laughter. Caitlin and Alex had a typical sibling relationship. They played and fought with the same intensity. However, there was affection between them, a connection that only close siblings share. Caitlin's days were often spent in the company of Alex, who, despite the age difference, never treated her as the annoying little sister. Instead, he included her in his adventures, whether exploring the sandy beaches or building makeshift forts in their backyard. Brandon and Isabella watched their children's interaction with affection, always grateful for the harmony that reigned in their home. They knew that life's challenges were inevitable, but trusted that the foundation they were building for Caitlin and Alex would help them face anything. One day, on a sunny Saturday afternoon, Caitlin was excited to show Alex her new tricycle, a surprise gift from their parents. She couldn't wait to ride along the sidewalks bordering their house under her brother's watchful eye. Alex, always protective, accompanied her to make sure everything went smoothly. As Caitlin pedaled enthusiastically, Alex walked alongside, occasionally running to keep up with his sister's sudden bursts of speed. Caitlin's laughter and shouts of joy echoed through the air. Brandon and Isabella watched from a distance, smiling at each other, proud of the companionship between their children. Everything seemed like a perfect picture of joy and tranquility. However, the serenity was abruptly shattered by a sound no parent would want to hear: the screech of tires on asphalt. A car, coming down the street at reckless speed, had lost control. Caitlin, absorbed in her fun, didn't notice the imminent danger. Alex, on the other hand, saw the situation unfold in slow motion, his protective instincts kicking in. Without hesitation, he ran towards his sister, pushing her forcefully out of the way of the out-of-control vehicle. Caitlin fell onto the lawn beside her, her tricycle tipped over a few meters away. She was scared but unharmed, thanks to her brother's quick action. Alex, however, was not so fortunate. In the moment he saved Caitlin, he was struck by the car, the impact hurling his body against the asphalt with brutal force. The sound of the impact was followed by an anguished silence, broken only by Caitlin's screams and the voices of neighbors rushing to help. Brandon and Isabella rushed over, terror etched on their faces as they saw Alex motionless on the ground. Isabella, with tears in her eyes, held Caitlin against her chest, trying to calm her while Brandon rushed to check on Alex. The following minutes were a whirlwind of activity. An ambulance was called, and paramedics arrived quickly. As they worked to stabilize Alex, the parents comforted Caitlin, who cried uncontrollably, still not fully understanding the severity of the situation. Alex was rushed to the hospital, leaving a community in shock and a family wrapped in fear and uncertainty. The doctors reported that he had multiple fractures and internal injuries, some of which might leave permanent consequences. That night, as Alex fought for his life in the hospital, Caitlin, unable to sleep and shaken by the experience, began to realize the sacrifice her brother had made. She felt a mix of gratitude and guilt, a shadow that would begin to form over her young conscience. In the years following the accident, Caitlin and Alex's lives took emotionally complex paths. Alex, after months of recovery, returned home with permanent physical limitations, drastically changing the dynamics of his daily life. Each day was a reminder of the scars left by the accident, manifesting both physically in his crutches and emotionally in his often somber expression. Meanwhile, Caitlin grew up under a cloud of distorted normality. Initially conscious of her brother's sacrifice, she gradually began to distance herself from this painful memory. Over time, the traumatic event became a hazy memory, and she inadvertently began to forget that Alex's condition was a direct result of his heroic act. She vaguely remembered the accident, but the specific details of how it happened and why began to fade from her memory. This erosion of memory led Caitlin to develop a distorted perception of Alex. As she became a teenager, her patience with Alex's limitations diminished. She sometimes showed irritation with her brother's slowness and his dependence on certain activities, treating him less as someone who had sacrificed for her and more as a burden complicating her life. Alex deeply felt this change in Caitlin. He sensed her irritation and lack of understanding about his condition, which hurt him, but he resigned himself, internalizing the pain and rejection, believing perhaps he was indeed a burden. His self-esteem was affected, and he became more reclusive, dedicating himself to solitary hobbies that did not require the participation or approval of others, such as building miniature models and reading. Brandon and Isabella watched with concern the growing coldness between their children. They tried to intervene, reminding Caitlin of what Alex had done for her, but their attempts were often met with disdain or indifference by Caitlin, who seemed increasingly distant from the reality of her brother's sacrifice. As Caitlin and Alex navigated through adolescence, tensions within the family continued to grow. Caitlin, now 16, was increasingly involved with her friends and extracurricular activities, leaving little room for her brother. Alex, feeling isolated and misunderstood at home, began to seek refuge in his studies and a desire for independence. The situation at home became even more complicated when marital problems began to surface between Brandon and Isabella. The constant financial and emotional concerns related to Alex's care, combined with Caitlin's emotional distance, created a tense and charged atmosphere. Arguments became more frequent, and moments of peace and family joy became rare. This escalation of tensions culminated in Alex's decision to move to another state to study. He had been accepted into a university with an excellent engineering program, his passion. The prospect of living in an environment where he could be more than the brother with a disability was something he longed for. The news of Alex's departure was met with mixed feelings. Isabella felt a deep pain at seeing her son move away, but at the same time, she understood Alex's need to find his own path. Brandon, on the other hand, worried about the practical implications of the move, how Alex would manage on his own, and how the family would financially handle the situation. Caitlin, who had emotionally distanced herself from her brother, reacted with an indifference that hid her true turmoil of emotions. Deep down, she felt a mix of relief and guilt, relieved by the prospect of not having to deal with Alex's disability on a daily basis, but at the same time guilty for feeling that way. Shortly after Alex's move, Brandon and Isabella's marriage reached its breaking point. The internal struggles caused by the distance of one child and the indifference of the other led to their separation. Isabella stayed in the family home while Brandon moved to a nearby apartment, hoping that some space and time could bring a new perspective to their marital problems. The separation of her parents deeply affected Caitlin. She began to reflect more seriously on the recent changes in her life and to realize the impact of her own actions and attitudes. The reality of her now fragmented family made her question the role she had played in the events that unfolded. After Alex's move and her parents' separation, Caitlin often found herself alone at home, surrounded by a silence that forced her to confront her own thoughts and actions. As the hours passed, she began to reflect on how her indifference and distant treatment might have affected Alex and contributed to the tension and eventual separation of her parents. Loneliness and regret began to weigh on her, driving her to seek answers she had always avoided. On a particularly lonely afternoon, Caitlin decided to confront her mother, Isabella, seeking to fully understand the origins of Alex's condition. Isabella, surprised and emotionally shaken by the question, hesitated initially, but the sincerity in Caitlin's eyes made her realize that it was time to reveal the whole truth. With tears in her eyes, Isabella told Caitlin about the day of the accident. She described how Alex, without a second thought, had rushed to save Caitlin from an out-of-control car, resulting in his permanent physical disabilities. Isabella explained that she and Brandon had decided not to tell Caitlin the full truth when she was younger, fearing the emotional burden it could place on her. Hearing the truth, Caitlin felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. The magnitude of Alex's sacrifice and the realization that her indifferent actions over the years might have exacerbated his struggles filled her heart with pain and guilt. She was devastated, realizing that her brother had endured so much physically and emotionally to protect her while she treated him with disdain and impatience. Consumed by the need to make amends and express her remorse, Caitlin decided to visit Alex at his university. She needed to see him, to apologize personally, and to understand how he was living his life after so many years of emotional distance. Upon arriving at the university, Caitlin found a different Alex than the one she had left behind. He was engaged in his academic and social activities, seeming to have found a place where he was valued for his abilities and intelligence and not judged by his limitations. Watching him interact with his peers and friends, Caitlin felt a mix of admiration and sadness for not having been more present and understanding. In a moment of courage, Caitlin approached Alex, and with a voice full of emotion, she began to apologize. She spoke about the revelation made by her mother, about how wrong she had been in her attitudes, and about her deep desire to rebuild the broken relationship between them. Alex, surprised and moved, listened attentively, his own feelings a storm of relief, sadness, and hope. After the revelation and the emotional encounter with Alex, Caitlin returned home with a new sense of purpose and determination. She was resolute in changing her ways and rebuilding the relationships that had been damaged by time and misunderstanding. The weight of guilt she carried began to transform into a force for redemption and repair. In the days that followed, Caitlin took several initiatives to get closer to Alex. She started by sending regular messages and emails, sharing details of her day-to-day life and expressing genuine interest in her brother's activities and achievements. Alex, initially cautious, gradually responded with more openness, sharing aspects of his university life that Caitlin had never known. Parallel to this, Caitlin also strived to repair the relationship with her parents. She spent more time at home with Isabella, helping with household chores and engaging in long conversations where they both shared feelings and concerns. With Brandon, she sought moments to visit him in his new apartment, trying to understand and support the difficulties he was facing with the separation and distance from his children. At the same time, Caitlin sought ways to connect more deeply with Alex. She planned a visit during the winter break, where they could spend more time together. During this visit, Caitlin and Alex had the opportunity to really talk about many unspoken issues, sharing fears, hopes, and dreams for the future. Alex expressed how independence and the academic environment had helped him gain confidence and overcome some of his insecurities. Caitlin listened attentively, realizing how little she truly understood about her brother's internal journey. She apologized again for her past failures and reiterated her commitment to support him in any way she could. Caitlin and Alex continued to strengthen their bonds in the following months, supported by constant communication and regular visits. Now more aware of the impact of her actions, Caitlin made a conscious effort to integrate Alex into her life, including him in plans with friends when possible and always sharing details of her daily life, creating a digital bridge that lessened the distance between them. Meanwhile, Alex also made significant changes in his life. He became more open about his experiences and feelings, not just with Caitlin, but also with his peers and professors at the university. This new openness helped to dispel many of the misunderstandings that had previously surrounded his social life. One spring weekend, an unexpected event provided an opportunity for a new type of interaction between the siblings. Caitlin, attending an academic conference that coincidentally took place in Alex's city, decided to extend her stay to spend some time with him. The unplanned reunion proved to be a milestone in their lives, as both were eager to demonstrate the personal progress they had made. During the visit, Alex took Caitlin to see his campus and introduced her to some of his closest friends. Caitlin was impressed by the respectful and affectionate way Alex's friends treated him, and how they clearly valued his friendship and intelligence. This gave her a new perspective on her brother's ability to overcome adversity and build a rich and meaningful life, despite his physical limitations. Caitlin and Alex spent hours talking in a small local cafe, discussing not just their everyday lives, but also their hopes and plans for the future. Caitlin expressed her desire to help reconnect the family, especially in terms of reconciling their parents. Alex, although initially skeptical about the possibility of reconciliation between Brandon and Isabella, was persuaded by his sister's determination. Inspired by their own journey of reconciliation, they devised a plan to try to reunite the family. They decided to organize a small family gathering in a neutral place where they could openly discuss their feelings and experiences from the past years without the weight of the familiar home environment. This plan materialized a few weeks later, when both parents agreed to attend the meeting, motivated by the desire to see their children united and by the possibility of healing some old wounds. The meeting was emotional, with each family member expressing their frustrations, grievances, and hopes for the future. It was a crucial step towards better understanding each other and beginning to rebuild family unity. After the initial family meeting, which reignited the hope for reconciliation, Caitlin and Alex continued to play active roles in rebuilding family relationships. The success of the first meeting encouraged them to organize regular gatherings, each planned to facilitate open communication and help all family members process past events and heal old wounds. In these meetings, each family member had the opportunity to share more deeply their experiences and feelings that had accumulated over the years. Isabella and Brandon, touched by their children's initiative, began to open up about their own struggles during the separation period. Isabella spoke about the loneliness and sadness she felt, and Brandon shared his difficulties in dealing with the separation and the distance from his children. Alex, in turn, shared his experiences at the university, talking about how education and the academic environment helped him rebuild his self-esteem and find a supportive community. He expressed gratitude for the new relationship he was developing with Caitlin and how it had positively impacted his life. Caitlin, feeling empowered by the progress made, also opened up about how guilt and the realization of her past mistakes motivated her to change. She discussed how reflections on her actions helped her better understand family dynamics and her own emotions, leading her to a commitment to keep her family united. The stories shared in these meetings not only helped each family member see situations from new perspectives, but also promoted an environment of understanding and forgiveness. Inspired by this change, Brandon proposed an idea that everyone warmly embraced: a weekend family retreat in a country house, away from the memories of the home that had so often been the stage for their difficulties. The retreat was planned as an opportunity to strengthen bonds, share new memories, and continue the healing process. During the retreat, the family engaged in various activities together, such as hiking, game sessions, and meals prepared together. These moments of casual togetherness allowed everyone to experience the joy of being together again without the weight of old grievances. As the weekend progressed, Caitlin and Alex realized how far their family had come. Conversations, once tense and laden with resentment, now flowed more freely, filled with laughter and shared anecdotes. Everyone's willingness to forgive and move forward became evident, marking a new chapter in the family's life. The weekend retreat proved to be a milestone in the family's journey. The return to daily routine was marked by a new disposition to maintain the communication and support they had cultivated during their time together. Caitlin and Alex, now closer than ever, felt encouraged by the progress and determined not to let old grievances resurface. With this renewal, Caitlin saw an opportunity to address an issue that had been growing in her mind: Alex's long-term well-being. During one of the family meetings, she proposed the idea of exploring new technologies and treatments that could help Alex better manage his physical limitations and perhaps improve his quality of life. Alex, initially hesitant to again face the topic of his disabilities so directly, was gradually encouraged by his family's support. Influenced by the positive atmosphere that now permeated their interactions, he agreed to consult specialists and explore options he had previously been reluctant to consider. The entire family got involved in the process, accompanying Alex to appointments with rehabilitation specialists, therapists, and assistive device engineers. Caitlin, in particular, took the initiative to research and contact organizations that worked with physically disabled individuals, bringing ideas and resources to family discussions. This period was a collective learning experience for everyone. Isabella and Brandon, inspired by their children's proactivity, also found new ways to contribute, from making practical adjustments in the house to facilitate Alex's mobility, to providing the constant emotional support he needed to face these new challenges. The support from his family gave Alex the confidence needed to try a series of assistive devices that significantly improved his ability to move and perform daily activities with less dependence. One of the devices, an advanced motorized wheelchair, allowed him a freedom of movement he hadn't experienced in years, bringing a new level of independence to his life. Caitlin watched all this with pride and relief. Alex's progress was not just a testament to his resilience, but also to the power of a united family. With each step Alex took toward independence, Caitlin felt she was redeeming past mistakes, reaffirming her commitment to support her brother, no matter what the future held. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. See you in the next story.